Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us in this episode of Clarity in Crisis, Relationship Breakdown to Breakthrough. Thank you, Dr. Brown, for joining us. We're looking forward to your nuggets of wisdom this morning to tell us how to go from a breakdown in our relationships to a breakthrough. And hopefully one day we'll be able to talk about beyond the breakthrough. That'll be a glorious day. My name is Angela Gibson, as you know, and I am Angela Gibson of Eve Speaks, or Angie Speaks of Eve Speaks. And our mission here is to be dogged, determined, and we just want to fight all we can to be the next best version of ourselves every single day. And so we join you to join us in our journey to growth and consistent growth and never giving up on ourselves. And so today, relationships, as we know, is a very big part of our ability to thrive. So we're going to talk about how to go from a breakdown to a breakthrough through this, especially during this period of the global pandemic, the financial meltdown, the compounding of crises that we are facing today. Relationships definitely have to be healthy in order to survive. So Dr. Brown, once again, thank you. So the question I have today, it's a good question. Why do relationships break down to begin with? Why don't they usually work?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons, and we can't cover them all. I'll cover what I've experienced as the main problems in working with couples. And one of the reasons is relationships that are formed on the rebound don't work well.
Formed on the rebound, what does that mean?
What that means is that you're in pain, you're looking for relief, and whoever happens to be in front of you, you determine the person to give you the relief. So your investment in that relationship is for yourself, not
whatever is in front of you, you just grab it, right? Any old person off the street, you'll just grab them because I'm looking for relief. That's what it means to be on the rebound. Okay. Anything else about being on the rebound? Sometimes it's not somebody off the street. Sometimes it's somebody you've known for a while. I've known someone who've known this man for a long time. They never dated, but then they were in a precarious situation. She was in a precarious situation here in the United States. She was here by herself. She had some kids, from before, and she was just alone. And then she, saw this person that she already knew from back home, and one thing led to another. They got married, but she later on admitted that she never really loved him, but she needed what my father was no longer providing. So yeah, I guess that would be an example of rebound. Is that correct?
Yes, basically rebound is whoever you choose to use as a substitute while you try to heal from your pain of the last relationship.
Substitute love. There's a song in Jamaica that says, I don't want no substitute love. Okay. What else is another reason why relationships break down? Well,
one other reasons that I've noticed is that people don't really know each other. It's light. It's just on the surface. Basically, you're just enjoying each other. You're enjoying each other's company. It's kind of an immediate relationship, not a relationship that you're investing time and energy in to find out who is this other person. Well, before you can do that, actually, you need to know yourself. And most of us don't. We've been working on that for the last couple of months, but hopefully you know yourself and take the time and effort to know the other person as well.
Well, in this effort to know the other person, because I can feel like because I've been spending time with someone, then I'm getting to know them. But what are some things what are some questions to ask? I always say, the quality of our questions give us better answers, right? So what are some questions that people could ask in a relationship to get to know this person? Because you may think you're going to the movies. I mean, he's coming over, you're cooking him dinner, he's taking you to a nice place. I mean, you're going dancing. I mean, you're really having a great time. So you feel like you know the person. You really do. And then you get married or something like that, or you get more committed to each other. And then you realize, oh my gosh, who's this person? It's like a stranger, literally, that you're meeting again for the first time. So are there any set of questions that we could ask
Well,
to help?
I don't think it's so much questions as it is getting to know the inner person. You see, you can know about me, but
Right.
you won't know me unless you're willing to take the time to do that. And unless you know yourself, you can't do that. For instance, let's say you know yourself, and let's say you know what things you like and what things you don't like. It has nothing to do with other people. Just for the sake of numbers, let's say there are 10 things that are important to you in a relationship. Only you can know what that is. And it's important to you. You need to know what those 10 things are. And you also need to know what things you're willing to negotiate on and what things you're not. You see?
And
And
which to negotiate on and which not to negotiate. I think what happens though, you get into a relationship with, the opposite sex, and you want the relationship to work so bad, you start to overlook or start to ignore what you initially say that you wanted in the relationship. Is that right?
well, that goes back to knowing who you are, knowing what you value, and not willing to negotiate on certain things and being clear. You can't tell somebody else that they must follow something that's important to you, but what you can do is say to the person, this is important to me. Can you honor it? And either they'll say yes or they'll say no. Either way, no matter where things are going, if you are true to yourself at any point in time, when you see that that issue isn't being honored, you have to address it and be willing to deal with the consequences. That's where the problems come in. People want things, but they're not willing to deal with the consequences, so therefore they don't honestly say where they're coming from, and they aren't honestly willing to leave if they're not getting what they want or
But
need.
it sounds so easy when we're sitting here talking about it, that, you got to know yourself. And, when you're in the relationship, you just got to know how to negotiate and, put this in front of the person. And if they don't want to honor it, you walk away. But when we get emotions involved, it gets so entangled, I have to say. I mean, I haven't really dated a whole lot of people, but I've experienced that when your emotion gets really attached, it becomes hard to pull away. So while I agree with what you're saying, in reality, as human beings, our emotions tend to get the better of us, which is why it's so important to really know ourselves. Because I think the more we know ourselves, the harder it will be to just give in to emotions. So again, that self-awareness becomes very important. Another thing that you mentioned that is a reason why relationships break down is a lack of investing in each other. What does that mean?
Okay. What that means is you're in a relationship that you're fully present.
Mm.
if you're there to meet your needs, whether it's because you're lonely or because you just want to have sex or because you want money, any number of things, if you are there for your own basic selfish reasons, you're not going to think about the other person, much less try to take time to understand who that person is, what they need, and to try to provide that need. One of the goals of the relationship is people are to support one another. That's not going to happen if you are only about yourself.
Wow. This idea of investing in each other, I mean, it's so important because I know when I was dating my husband, one of the reasons why I chose him versus the other guy who wanted to marry me is because he was not so concerned about just him and I. He was concerned about my whole being. And that was so important to me. And I didn't realize how important it was to me until he started to exhibit those qualities. He wanted to ensure that spiritually I stayed on the right track. He wanted to ensure that if any decision I make with him isn't going to serve me for the better in the future, he wanted nothing to do with it. And I remember us having a very candid conversation when I was like, you know, I'm a Christian, I don't practice sex before marriage. And he was like, okay. Of course, I invited him to church and he became a Christian and all this stuff. And then we got married. But just the fact that he was willing to just put his needs or his desires on hold was really big for me to be able to see that this person is out for my best interest. He was willing to invest in getting to know me and then take it from there. It was huge. That's huge. The investment the other person is willing to make into you, which may or may not have anything to do with him. And because he saw that I had already been living that way, he felt like he was getting a medal of some kind, you know, because wow, you don't meet many women who are living like this. So he just felt like he was getting the prize. Guys want to feel like they're getting the prize, by the way, ladies. They do. I don't want to say I thought I was the prize necessarily, but turns out I am, because God told me I'm the prize. You are too, by the way. What's another reason why relationships break down, Dr. Brown?
Well, either of them entering because they're insecure, and to feel whole or good, hoping that the relationship will make them feel good. That's a real dangerous one, because that is the one that opens the door for the narcissist. Oh, yes. So the narcissist.
Always talk about the narcissist. Tell the audience again what the narcissist is before you get into it. What is a narcissist?
Selfish person. Selfishness to the nth degree. And coming back. Now look, narcissism can have many levels to it, okay? But the one that's problematic is the one that's at the extreme end, where it's just totally and completely all about them, period.
But it doesn't start out that way. They start out, you think you got, you know, Romeo or something, or you may think you have Juliet.
The devil doesn't appear and say, hey, I'm the devil and I'm going to jack your life up. Let me in. No. The devil used to be an angel of light. And it's evil forces. The psychologists say that. There's evil forces operating behind these people. And so, of course, that they will present themselves in the best light. They usually have things because they're all about themselves. Okay? Wow. A lot of times they look good. They dress good. They have,
charismatic, huh?
You know, great personality. And they have the ability to analyze your needs. This is how they live. They live by working people, not by working. Okay?
And they work people, not by working. Interesting. Good morning, Arlene. Thanks for joining.
And so
Wow.
when these people, when you come across their path, you have to have something to offer. If you have nothing to offer, they have no time for you. They won't even look at you. Okay? So you
Wow.
have something to offer, therefore they assess you. The same way you should assess yourself, they assess you. And they figure, what is it that this person is lacking? Do they have an extreme need for attention and to be loved? Well, you know what? I am going to do that. I'm going to go all out. Going to take you to fairy tale land, Disneyland. And for a time, it's going to be all about you.
Mm.
And then when they determine, and they know exactly when to drop the charade, when they have you, when they have their hooks in you, they
Wow.
drop it. And then from that point on, you're hooked because you refuse to accept that it was not true. You hold on to the fantasy that life will be like that again. And this goes back to something we talked about a few minutes ago. You know, you talked about, oh, everything feels good and everything is wonderful. No, you know what? The scripture says you need to guard your heart.
Right.
And what means is you can't allow anybody to just come into your life and get that close to you without knowing them. You have to give yourself time to know the person. And when we are going only by feelings, oh, want more, 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 more. And that's the very thing that's going to cause you all your problems later on in life.
So the breakdown starts with, if you start a relationship based on a rebound, you're gonna have a breakdown. If you have a relationship that hasn't gotten past the surface, and a relationship that lacks an investment in each other, and then you said the insecurity, which opens up the path or the window to the narcissist who make you feel like butterflies and ribbons, and then they drop the charade and you really have a breakdown. So how can breakthroughs to a healthy relationship occur? We know what causes the breakdown, but how can breakthroughs occur?
Well, you begin now by taking the time to take care of yourself, your body, your soul, your spirit. Get to know you. What do you think? What do you believe? What's important to you in life? Know you and be willing to stand on what you believe, even if you have to lose whatever it is you think is this grand prize that you're getting. And not only do you have to do that for yourself, but your partner also needs to know these things. And if they don't know it, then you ask. That's when you ask questions. You know, what's valuable to you? What's important to you? What do you want out of life? How are you planning to go about achieving these things? How do you see me fitting into that?
But what about this whole thing of finding a good man? You know, he's a good man. He got a good job. He may have 3 jobs. He got a good job and he has a good education and he makes so much money per year, whatever the number is for you, the magic number. And he's from a good family. I mean, these are the things that I hear, I mean, on social media. When women talk about a good man, this is what they're talking about. If, you know, and guys too, what's a good woman? You have to assess. Sometimes I think we have to redefine what a good man or a good woman is, because maybe what we don't need is just a good man. We need a godly man, is what I've learned. We need a godly woman. And so I find that even in my own relationship, the more I prayed about my relationship with my husband and the more he's praying about, and we praying to us praying together, it definitely continues to lead to breakthroughs. That's something very important for me to say, because sometimes you can think that a breakthrough is one and done, but I have breakthroughs constantly in my relationship with my husband because I'm constantly getting to know him. So this idea of getting a breakthrough to a healthy relationship, you're saying you have to ask the right questions. And I go back to that question again. A good question I can ask, I've asked is, do you want a relationship with God, or how do you see God? Because I think that's really important. And he told me a story where, there's this girl that he was considering dating, and at the time that he met me, we were just friends. And he was just asking me what I thought, because this girl, she thought that God was metaphysical hogwash, the whole concept of God. And I didn't really like him at the time. I was just being actually we met in school, we were classmates. And I said, really? That's what she said? And he was having doubts anyway because of this. But the fact that he had the curiosity to ask somebody else what they thought was really important. When he asked her, that was her answer. So I think asking the right questions, you have to know what the questions to ask are in order to get the right answer, so you can know what you're building. So you're right. You have to know yourself, but you also have to know your partner and know the questions to ask. What other ways can we get breakthroughs to a healthy relationship?
Okay. You have to accept the fact that people are different. Not everybody is the same. And so for that reason, you need to really know where you are, where you're going. Is that person on board with you? Is it a fit? Do your personalities fit?
Your personalities fit. Wow, that can be sometimes hard to judge, no? Don't you think? Because it may be in one situation, in one scenario, you get along really great. And then in another scenario, you don't. Or I've seen people get along great one-on-one, and then when they go into a group of other people, hi, Clover Bear Taylor. I hope you're safe down there in Florida. And then when they get around other people, one partner is just completely silent to the point where it's uncomfortable. And then the other partner has to keep the conversation and everybody else engaged. To me, that's not a fit. Because I want to know that when I'm in a room with my husband, I want to feel like there is a give and take with the people that we are around, to make the atmosphere healthy and even keel, a sense of balance. And I've seen that. So making sure personalities fit is a big one, I think, because I see it now in my marriage. People come over my house, my husband is making them breakfast or dinner, he's serving them. But I've also seen relationships where people come over to somebody's house, the husband goes to the room, and the wife, she has to be figuring out everything. I think that's ridiculous. I don't think that's a fit. So I think it's a big one. Making sure the relationships fit, the personalities fit. What's another one?
Okay, people have to actually actively listen to one another.
Actively listen.
That means that you have to put your agenda to the side long enough to listen to what the other person is saying. And unfortunately these days, we live in a time where everyone is in a hurry. Lots of people are selfish. Actually, the scripture says that as things go on, people are going to get more and more selfish. They're going to have hard hearts.
It sounds like we can't look forward to a better world. It's just going to get worse and worse. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, what scripture said is don't look to the world, look to Jesus.
Ah, that's a juicy nugget right there. Don't look to the world, look to Jesus. All right, okay.
And again, it's about taking time. You see, I remember when I've been around for a long time, y'all. But when the TV was the in thing, we thought everything should happen in a half hour. And it didn't. We were disappointed with ourselves, with our partners and with other people in life. Now, with the internet, we expect things to happen in seconds or milliseconds, and so, and not only that, but people are more distant these days, you know? People are more isolated. Even parents have little time for their children. And so children grow up not learning many of the things that they need to learn in order to function effectively in life. And all
So
of that.
active listening that you're talking about means what? It means we're listening long enough to hear what the need is. Is that what the active listening is in order to get a breakthrough in your relationship? What is that? What encompasses the active listening? How do you know if you're actively listening? Because I could hear you. Sometimes I hear my husband saying a whole bunch of things, but that doesn't necessarily mean.
I guess your own question. You can't be so concerned about your own issues that you really are not taking. You just want him to get done talking to you onto your own agenda. That's not.
I'm guilty of that, honestly. Like, okay, I got this and this and this, and because usually a million things is going through my head about what I have to do. And if he's talking about this, especially if he's repeating the same thing over and over, oh my gosh, I'm just like, I'll just say, okay, but the truth is I just want to get to what I have to do next. It's been one of our weaknesses that we've had to actively work on. So active listening for me is when he comes into my office, I turn the chair and I look at him, look into his eyes so that he knows I've acknowledged him and hearing what he's saying. Because if I'm in the middle of the workday, because we both work from home now, and I have so many things happening at the same time, I can easily feel like him coming to say, hi, how you doing? Like I could feel like it's an interruption, as opposed to, man, my husband's coming to say hi, to what I'm doing and talk about whatever is on his mind. And sometimes, honestly, I'm not ready to hear what he has to say, or I feel like I'm too busy to hear what he's saying. So the active listening becomes really critical. I have to tell myself that I need to pause, look at him, acknowledge him, and then listen.
Now,
it takes training. In my case, it takes a lot of training. So it's very important, actually. Anything else you want to say about active listening? Any other tips for breaking through in your relationship?
One of the ways to help that process of active listening is to set time aside on a regular basis that doesn't get changed on a whim. The same time, the same place, maybe an hour, tops an hour and a half. You could be having dinner, you could be having a cup of coffee, but this is your space to listen. And you set that
about that for a second, because my husband and I, we practice that, but we practice it much more effectively before COVID-19. COVID-19 has really interrupted our flow because our kids are always around, and it's not like you can ship them somewhere else because everybody's scared about getting sick. And we don't want them to get sick either. So yeah, how do you navigate the crises and want to have a breakthrough in your relationship or want to keep a healthy relationship going? Because sometimes, I mean, my son is 11, my daughter is 6. They're time suckers. It's almost like the minute they see mommy and daddy sitting down together, my daughter, she wants to have a conversation with my husband. And he's noticed, he's like, I think she's jealous or something, because she makes it her business to come and interrupt. So, and then my son, if we don't see what he's doing, he'll just play games all day long. So it's become, whereas before, if they're in school, we could even talk on the phone without interruptions. On the weekends, we would send them upstairs and spend time. And sometimes we still do that, but I just find it to be so much harder with COVID-19. And I think COVID-19 is putting a lot of stress on many relationships. But because we've been talking about it, we're aware. We actually have a date, we're planning a date to go to the ocean, you know, to the water and just chill. Because my husband's like, I need to get away because the kids are driving us, you know, it's just too much. It really is. So I kind of lost my train of thought, but that part of spending time is very important. Setting aside time. Very, very crucial. What other tips do you have for us, Ms. Dr. Brown?
Well, before we move on to the next tip, I want to say the time that you set aside needs to be that you both sit down and determine that you actually do have that time. Now, even with COVID, the children should be going to bed at a certain time.
Sounds good.
Well, once that part is taken care of, then you make the time because you have the time. And the key thing is it's not a fly-by-night thing.
Emergencies all around us. It's okay.
It's not the important thing is that it's not serendipitous. In other words, there's a fixed time. If your fixed time has to be 12 o'clock at night on Tuesday night, well, every Tuesday night at 12 o'clock, you don't ask, he doesn't ask. You know that's what you're doing, and you spend the time listening.
Emergencies all around. Maybe they're having a breakthrough too. Wow. So you're saying once you set the time, you have to hold on to it with a dogged determination for you to spend time with your partner, and nothing should challenge it. That's your point, right? And you should both come to an agreement that nothing can challenge this time unless somebody's dying. Okay. We're going to try that again. We've been spending time though, but it's just always interrupted by something. I'm telling you. And then we have to try to. So what we've been doing we've been having breakfast in the morning, and at night when the kids go up, we usually send them to bed somewhere between 10 and 11 with COVID, and then we talk, and then we go to bed and we lay down and we talk. But before, it was much easier. That's all I'm saying. But we still recognize that we do need the time. Okay, so we're going to talk about that some more this week then. It needs to be a time that we are committed to. Because what I find that is that we can have great intentions, and a lot of that, this goes in many areas, you know, goes on in many areas of life. We can have great intentions, but then when the time actually comes to make it happen, the intentions fall by the wayside. Anything else that you would want to talk about in terms of having a breakthrough in your relationship?
Let me say this. In terms of the commitment of time, it really is a commitment to each other. It's the saying to each other, I love you, and I'm not going to allow anything to come between us for this hour or this hour and a half. I am fully present and ready to hear and listen to what you have to say. And in that process, either of you may hear something you don't like. You still listen.
Right. Yeah, we've had some uncomfortable conversations for sure. Yeah, and it's in that sense, it's helped us to grow because we sit and listen to the uncomfortable stuff, even when we really want to shut down. The other thing that you mentioned is that you have to give people time and be present. You said that, and develop and work on your communication skills. Now, my husband and I both studied communication at Baruch College. But when we got married, we said, really? We have degrees in communication? We would actually say that to each other. We both have degrees in communication because we were having major communication issues. We were like, psh, you know. So how do you develop good communication skills with your partner?
Well,
of course, it's actively listening is one of them for sure. But how do you keep it going?
You have to have rules.
Rules.
Let's call them Rules of engagement.
Hallelujah. I like that. Rules of engagement.
And the first rule and the only rule that works is want something, but I realize that you want something too. And in order for me to get what I want, I have to be willing to give you what you want. At the very least, everybody wants respect. And so, no matter what the situation is, I don't care how upset you are, you never allow a situation to cause you to disrespect each other.
Right. That
is trust. See? And when trust is gone, you can kiss the relationship goodbye.
Aye, aye, aye. Hi, Dawn. Dawn O'Ree says it's about teaching them to honor the boundaries, and they get it when redirected. Oh, she's talking about my children. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yes, I have to teach them to honor boundaries. That's true. So you were saying, Dr. Brown, that, remember what you were saying? Yes. Communications, that we have to have rules of engagement.
Right.
And
the first is respect.
First is respect.
Respect. I want something, but I realize you need something too. And I can't expect only to get what I need and not pay attention to what your needs are.
But it has to be a win-win situation, not win-lose.
Which is respect. So the next one is where a lot of people live, which is what you're saying, win-lose. Okay, that means I only want what I want and I could care less about you. Meet my needs. Oh yeah, we go there often. Actually, that's where America lives. It's all about me. And I'm funny, but now we get a little bit elaborate.
You're going in and out.
I didn't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Okay. The next way of communicating, can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay, the next way of communicating is through aggression. And aggression is I want what I want and I don't care. And it could be right in your face type of aggression, or around the corner kind of aggression, where you agree to do whatever the person wants and you never come through. You just never come through. That is whether you realize it or not, that is something that you have developed as a way of getting what you want or coping with what you can't get.
And that's all part of communication.
Communication, how we communicate. That communication is through aggression. The other type of communication can be through guilt. And that means you wear the other person out. Your hope is to wear them out until you get what you want. You make them.
I've done that. I've worn my husband out. And he'll go, oh my gosh, you're like a stockbroker. But not in a negative way. But I understand what you're saying.
Lose-win is guilt. And guilt is ugly. Guilt makes people feel like they're not okay. In order to feel okay, you have to give me what I want.
Wow. So let's run through those communication skills again. The communications. You're not done? Oh.
The last one, the last way people communicate is through spite.
Aye.
And that's me. That's two win-lose people together. And that never ends well.
Wow. Spite. So can you run through those again real quick? The 5 ways of working on your, is it 5 ways of working on your communication skills? Or
it's
to develop and work? 4?
1 is by being mutually respectful of each other. 2 is by being aggressive, either outwardly or passive aggressive. 3 is by using guilt, or 4 is by using spite. The only one that works is mutual respect.
The only one that works if you want to have a breakthrough in your relationship is mutual respect. Arlene says, I agree. Don says, oh man, that's not good for relationships. Don, no true. Yeah, relationships is a hot topic. We're almost done here. You also said that we need to manage and work on manage mobile technology and be aware of pitfalls. I think that ties into communication too, because sometimes I could be talking to my husband and man, I'm getting an email from this person and that person, and I have to make myself stop. So I don't know if we need to say much about that because it's pretty obvious. Give people your active attention, your full attention, be present. What about the one to learn to give constructive feedback? What does that mean?
It means that you have to be courageous enough to share with another person when you see something not going well, and hopefully the person is able to accept it as well.
Wow.
Both
So
ways.
it sounds, go ahead.
So basically, both people have to be vulnerable with one another.
Vulnerable. See that word right there? I'm working on it all. I think I'll be working on it all the days of my life. Because vulnerability takes so much courage, and to be willing to say, you know, that really hurt my feelings, as opposed to getting angry. That really made me feel this way. I mean, we had a breakthrough last year, my husband and I, in this area, and I'm telling you, it's crown jewels in our relationship. Because I was able to say, what you said made me feel this way, and he was able to say, I feel this way, and he actually put the words to his emotion. I mean, I grew up in an environment where men will never talk about their feelings, and to hear my husband talk about his feelings is just it's so good, because I don't have to sit around wondering what he's thinking. In the beginning, I did have to wonder, and I would say, you have to talk. And so that's when I instituted this whole thing of, we have to have family time. Before we had kids, this is before we had kids, and we'd sit down on Saturday or Sunday evening, and we'll just say whatever is on our hearts and our mind. And it could be good, it could be wins, it could be bad, it could be, you know, I don't like the way you talk to me in front of this person, or I don't like the way, or for me it was I don't like your tone. Don't talk to me with that tone. Go back to Wall Street. I mean, it was real. But what it helped us to do over the years is to get to a point where last year it wasn't like we were like starting from the beginning, because we've been building on that. So last year, when we were having a hard time, he was able to say, I feel this. And I was able to say, when you say it this way, this is how I feel. And this is an example, the live example that's causing me to feel this in the moment. And it really made a huge difference, because the vulnerability and the courage that was required and that it took to get to that place was serious work. I mean, it was a muscle that we had to exercise. You can't get around it if you want to have a breakthrough. I've been married for 15 years, just about, and that I know for sure. That muscle must be exercised to the fullest extent, and it's never over, because you're constantly learning. I'm constantly learning about my husband, and to realize that relationship, you know, feelings, they are there with men. You just have to figure out you've got to figure out your space with each other so you can get to it. Because now we talk about feelings all the time, contrary to the way I was brought up. There was nobody talking about feelings. I didn't even know the word emotions. Okay, enough of that. But it's real. That one is a big one. What's the next one? Constructive feedback. The other one is open your heart and find the courage to trust. Sometimes it's hard to trust when you've been hurt, right? Yeah. So there's nothing to be said about that. But I think it becomes an issue when you start having trust issues, would you say, Dr. Brown?
Well, I think if you're having trust issues, it means that there's unresolved old wounds that you need to address. And probably the best way to do that is to address it in some kind of a therapeutic relationship.
Therapeutic relationship. Don said it's a beautiful thing to get to a place of vulnerability with our relationship. It makes things so much easier. Absolutely. So you believe therapy is a way to help with the trust factor? I believe in therapy,
Well,
guys.
yeah. It's a way to address your vulnerability in a
Mm-hmm.
safe environment. Whether it's, formal therapy or, counseling with your pastor who is trained to do that sort of a thing.
Right.
And who is going to keep your confidence. Okay. But
Mm.
last thing you want to do is go to somebody with having trust issues and have them violate the trust.
See your stuff on Facebook. Horrible. Yes, it's important to have a professional. And then don't talk to your girlfriend who probably can't. I love girlfriends, but I don't go to girlfriends with marital, especially if they're not married, with marital conflicts that I may have, or people who have negative things to say about relationships. I just stay away from it. I stay away from them in terms, I'll have talked to them about other things, but I kind of decide what to share with whom. I think that's very important. And the last two things, one says, the second to last thing says, learn to be more understanding and empathetic. That's pretty self-explanatory.
Well, empathy, caring about other people and
Mm.
what they feel. And in a culture where we are all fighting to get to the top, empathy is often not seen as a major goal that people want to achieve. But it's important in terms of close relationship and even business relationship, because nobody wants to be treated as if what they think and feel is not important. Oh, only I matter.
Not good. What's the difference between empathy and sympathy? Because I think people get that confused.
Empathy is being able to experience another person's pain,
Mm-hmm.
feeling sorry for them.
Sympathy is feeling sorry for them. Okay.
You can feel sorry. You can feel sorry without understanding, what they're going through.
You can feel sorry without understanding what they're going through. That reminds me of the whole COVID-19 racial injustice, financial meltdown thing that we're going through now. I think a lot of people feel sorry for what other people may be going through, like Black people may be going through, but don't necessarily understand what they're going through. And it's a difficult thing to navigate because some people feel genuine sympathy, but because they can't empathize, it's really hard for them to make the change, to help with the change that's needed. But I do have to say, I see a lot of people trying, and that's really good news. And then the last thing is to treat people as you would like to be treated yourself. In a relationship, in order to have a breakthrough, we have to treat people, and not just any, this applies to every relationship, I think. Treat people how you want to be treated yourself. I think in a romantic relationship, though, it's even juicier when the person thinks of ways to treat you in a good way when you didn't even think about it yourself. I mean, I think that's what puts the icing on the cake. When my husband comes up with something I didn't even think about to make me feel special. But I think that's a great nugget. Do you have anything that you want to add to that, Dr. Brown?
Oh yes, I think summing it all up, we all want and need to be treated with love. Because that doesn't always happen, we also have to learn how to forgive. A very hard thing. And in fact, I am planning to have a group. I hope people will join.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of which will be to learn how to forgive. What does it mean? How do I do it? What happens if I don't do it? What happens if I do?
Those are critical questions to answer. What happens if you don't forgive? What happens if you do? What does it mean to forgive? What does forgiveness look like? Because the truth is, in a relationship, we're gonna hurt each other. There's no question that my husband and I have hurt each other, sometimes painfully so. But we've always, to this point, come to a, with help too. We got people around. Let me make a point for the fact that you need people who are in healthy relationships themselves to be able to give you input, spiritual input, godly input, so that you can get back on track when you've hurt each other. Because that's definitely helped us. We've gone to people and say, this is what happened with me, and this is what I said, and this is how I knew I was wrong, or I may not even see that I was wrong. And the person with the spiritual eyes and the spiritual mindset they have been able to, the couples, usually it's couples, have been able to give us feedback on what we could have done differently, what could have been said, when it could have been said, how it could have been said. There's a scripture that talks about God can give you what to say and how to say it, and even when to say it. So again, the courage to work on our spiritual life, I think, takes precedence over all the breakthroughs that we're going to have. In order to have breakthroughs, I believe, with deep conviction, that I have to make sure that I have a breakthrough with God every day by spending time with him. Time. Yes, Dawn Renee. Yes, we have to spend time. Okay, Dr. Brown, I think we're done for today. We went longer than usual, but then again, relationships usually take a lot of time. So thank you so much for joining us in this episode of Angie Speaks, of Eve Speaks. Please follow us on Instagram, Angela Gibson Speaks. Follow Dr. Brown at ask_Dr. Mom. And you can also join our support group if you need help by going to our website, evespeaks.com, and sign up for our one-on-one consultation. Once again, thank you so much and have a better than terrific day. Bye-bye. Thank you, Dr. Brown.
You're welcome.